Look guys, this was a great game of rugby. Ireland and England could both still win the Six Nations. Both teams had at least a few periods of dominance over the game, but ultimately, with Ireland aiming to win back-to-back Grand Slams, aiming to be the first team to get them back-to-back since France in 1998, this game will be remembered for one thing: the drop goal that broke Irish hearts. Today's effort was absolutely phenomenal, and my name's Max, I'm the host over here at this channel. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons before we get into what happened during the match. We're going to break down the tactics that saw the English and the Irish really just at each other throughout the entire match, not letting up, and we'll also discuss a few of the statistics that led to the final score that England managed to get for today's win. So guys, let's get into this. Ireland set the tone of the match with a Jack Crowley penalty, but as a huge surprise to most, England actually looked to run the ball. With Ireland perhaps caught off guard, we end up on 3:39 when Calvin Nash is stuck on the ground injured after a tackle. The referee is unlikely to have seen Nash down given the fact that he's looking at Freeman's jersey number. As the referee hasn't seen Nash and is willing to play on, George decides to enter the ruck and give Furbank more time to get onside. While George gives England more access to front foot ball, it makes the job a little easier for Caelan Doris. Prior to his clean out, George was standing somewhere between Nash and the breakdown. Doris therefore knows Mitchell is going to pass to the blind side thanks to his body position. Doris, however, can't see the bigger picture. Watch the slow-mo closely to see Byrne wrap around from guarding the fringes on the open side to filling in on the blind side. We'll now examine the wide shot to see that while Doris has applied some pressure to Mitchell, Ireland are now needing to drift across as per this animation due to Nash being injured on the red cross. Furlong is a prop, so such a defensive shift simply won't be happening. Because of Nash's injury, the miscommunication by Ireland's defence now allows England a man advantage in the hands down the line. Slade now delays the final pass brilliantly, allowing Lawrence to brush off Crowley and score the opening try of the match. Considering the lack of attacking potency from England since their last outing against the All Blacks, I think it's safe to say that many were blindsided by the return of such ruck speed. England attempted to be pretty quick on defence as well, though I do believe this aspect of their game is going to need some work. While we point out the efficiency of England's defence prior to Crowley's second shot at goal, we'll also showcase why Ireland weren't making much in terms of metres. Andy Farrell almost certainly would have thought so from the coach's box, because the shape of this pod is pretty bad. Ahead of Ford's penalty goal, you can see England's forwards provide each other with assistance in gaining metres, but here you've got Sheehan between both McCarthy and Doris, but behind them and not in front of them. If Sheehan wishes to carry, he's so much more obvious, and this makes it harder for McCarthy to clean as he's looking towards Gibson Park. Because the shape is iffy, Doris calls to take the pass himself and is forced to spin around, giving Sheehan and McCarthy time to enter the ruck. We now see as Doris goes to ground in this still, Ford actually making a tackle for the 11th time in his career before Lawrence binds to Doris's chest, with Earl also coming in to provide support. Earl pushes Lawrence to ground, assisting him with getting over the ball before McCarthy even enters the ruck. They're not necessarily trying to win a turnover or hold Doris up. What England's did for much of the game was attempts to slow the English ball so they could organise their defence and create more pressure for the Irish. The issue with that though is that England aren't renowned for discipline, hence why I tipped their likely finishing place for the Six Nations is 4th or 5th. Lawrence quite clearly loses his footing, but still puts his hand on the ball, allowing Crowley to slot the 3 points. England's discipline at the ruck on attack wasn't the best either. This turnover by Bundy Aki directly leads to Crowley's third shot at goal. As we get into the halftime stats review of this video for those who like the data, I'm now going to just show a bit of extra data surrounding the possession and the territory stats. So what we have here, it's a bit of a photo I took during the game in the 37th minute. As we can see, 42% of the ball in play time, it was mostly between that 22 and that 50-metre line in the Irish edge of the pitch. So when we see England having 66% of the territory, that is much of the reason why, is by that point of the match that was how things were going for England. The English were definitely in control of the game. Though their attack structure was not very good, though it is running it straight constantly, it did allow them to build pressure, so not much effort necessarily went into scoring points by England, but what England did, it really just allowed them to gain a bit more of a mental edge than we've perhaps seen in the past. England in the past, they've kind of just gone into their shells when set moves aren't working, but what they were doing, it was allowing them to keep confidence throughout the match, because while they weren't attempting set moves too often, perhaps they still haven't got the confidence to do that under Borthwick. This was a nice step in the right direction, I guess, for them with the 56% possession. But you can also see England were running more than twice as many metres than the Irish, thanks to the massive amount of territory and possession that was in their favour. 3 clean breaks compared to 1 for Ireland. That was a bit of a surprise to me, because England, since Borthwick has come in, they have not played a very entertaining variation of rugby. There were times at the World Cup where I just switched off from watching them and ended up not doing videos that I'd planned to make on them. The turnovers though, Ireland were definitely getting a lot of good stuff going at the breakdown. Because England were running it straight so much, it was at least easy for the Irish to read what was going to happen, so England do still need to keep progressing from what they've done already since the Scotland match. Ireland's tackle percentage as well, even though they attempted a fair few more tackles than the English, they were still relatively similar in terms of the overall percentage, which I think was quite good. The high tackle accuracy from both teams made this such the contest that it was. The goal kick success though, really letting England's down, I do believe. We can see the misconversion and the missed penalty for Ford. So yes, Ollie Lawrence's try and George Ford's penalty attempt, they were the only points the English got, whereas the Irish were able to keep in the game entirely because of that English discipline. England gave away 4 penalties inside their own half, and all 4 of those shots at goal that became available, Ireland kicked them over to keep themselves in the game. You've got to just take the game in a manner where it's a slow burn. As we can see as well, the set piece was definitely a bit of a contest, just the one spilled line out for Ireland, so that was also alongside the tackle percentage, really helping this game to be a heck of a contest. Things are going to get a bit more spicy though as we discuss the second half. Anyway, with the ad break now done, let's continue that brief talk on attack structure so that we can examine how Ireland scored their first try. As Gibson Park arrives at this breakdown in the 44th minute, Earl, Underhill and Martin are still spreading wide. This is courtesy of George, their on-field defence coach, getting onside late after making the previous tackle. We'll cut to the wide shot to see that Aki has intentionally delayed his arrival into the blue, hands down the line axis, so that he can allow this 3-man pod to engage the English more realistically. All of my subscribers, who I hope you're amongst, have seen this animation on screen before. It's an innovation from about 2 years ago that is simply utilised to take pressure off his distributor, normally the 10. Because Aki isn't between Doris and Keenan though, we get a shape of 3 stacked pods, Furlong being at the head of the diamond shape. Furlong is therefore sold as a genuine runner rather than just a decoy, with Porter and Van der Fleer ready to bind to him for the breakdown. Although Crowley's intending for the ball to follow the blue axis as he catches it, Slade overruns his line in an attempt to intercept, leaving a hole the size of the Mariana Trench for Doris to run at. Crowley changes his mind from the game plan as Doris sends Aki into more space. Furbank makes a gamble here, trusting Ford to cover this space for Aki's 3 outside options, but his faith in Ford is a little misplaced as Lowe shows some nice athleticism to get the try. For the first time since their Italy encounter earlier this year though, England actually pull off a strike move during open play. Jamie George, who in my opinion was robbed of man of the match after getting taken off early, has done unbelievably well to organise the English attack in his unpaid role as the 12th coach of the team. What we see is very reminiscent of the lead up to Freddie Stewart's try against the All Blacks from 2022. While England are in this diamond-shaped pod with Ford in behind, trying to beat Ireland in their own game, the reason this is so effective is that Underhill is in a hands down the line from Mitchell to George and Genge. While Itoje has probably overcooked the pod shape a little, this allows for England to unlock a huge amount of space thanks to the wraparound possibilities for Ford and Slade, especially with the outside backs out of frame. As we move on from this animation though, Furlong isn't watching for Underhill and Itoje to take the pass. Furlong's defence line, as the arrow shows us, remains directed towards Genge. He's not paying attention as Underhill and Itoje are forwards, just like himself. Therefore, when Underhill takes the ball, it's completely possible for Slade and Furbank to follow this next animation to create a further hands down the line. A hands down the line is an outdated tactic from 1987 though, so Underhill opts to guarantee them some space. He gets tackled by Gibson Park, then offloads to Itoje. With Lowe stuck in this brief 2-on-1, Furbank is able to finish off and score from about 25 metres out. With Peter O'Mahony yellow carded, England are able to get ahead via a try to Ben Earl as well. There's not exactly too much to do in terms of analysis for Ben Earl's short-range effort, but what Ireland do here is very, very clever. They pull a very nice move out of South Africa's playbook. We can see in the 72nd minute as Murray gets to the ruck, the slow-mo of Conan and Healy, who wrap around from the blind side to the open side before taking the pass. Although Healy isn't binding to Conan to get him some extra metres on the freeze frame, as South Africa would normally have it happen, they're now facing opponents without the extra shoulder to make the tackles, opening the respective gaps for extra metres. Now that we'll take the spotlights off these two players following the animation, we'll see Crowley and Keenan as the only backs on the open side, though James Lowe is also out of frame. England have no need to provide Faye Boboso and Furbank with extra support, as Crowley is too far towards Keenan to take a pass from Conan. Crowley is, however, thinking about the next few phases in advance. This long line of 5 Irish players are all looking to follow the new animation and wrap around to create the numbers out wide during England's breakdown attendance. As the ruck happens, Dombrand, Earl and Cunningham South are the only Englishmen to wrap around. This allows for Henderson's brilliant pass to Crowley to create a 2-on-1 for Furbank, as he's been caught marking Lowe and Frawley. Although Marcus Smith shows some proper tenacity to tackle Lowe, he scores the try. Daly and Crowley both miss potential game-winning shots at goal. Crowley's failure to slot the conversion though still means England can win with another penalty attempt or a drop goal, and boy will Irish fans be wishing Conor Murray did not kick away the ball with about 90 seconds to go, giving England another line-out from 30 metres out. Not a flash idea by Murray. You want to know what happens next, guys? While under advantage, England have 2 pods that could realistically drive over. Dan isn't close enough to bind to Martin though, while Marler doesn't exactly want to ruin his record of 91 tests without a try. With Ben Earl in front of Beard and Doris as a blocker, it's all up to Marcus Smith to slot the game-winning drop goal. The drop goal that broke Irish hearts. England absolutely deserved to win this game, getting the final margin of 23-22. Marcus Smith, what an absolute hero. Before we go into the full-time stats, I just want to talk about Marcus Smith because boy, he was on fire. So good to have him back from injury. Steve Borthwick, say what you want about Eddie Jones, but Steve Borthwick needs to continue picking Marcus Smith now that he's back. If there's one thing Eddie Jones was able to spot, it was players who were obsessed with winning, and I think that reaction at the end of the game gives the impression that Marcus Smith is well and truly obsessed with winning. George Ford hasn't exactly had a good Six Nations, so after the way Marcus Smith played, continue starting him back in 2022. He was the best 10 in the world, and he played a very, very strong role in England getting that win off the bench. Though their territory rate, it did slip to 60%, with the Irish really trying to claw their way back into this game. England was still very, very good on defence and continued attacking quite well. They were making a lot of line breaks as well. They finished the game with 8 in total, so this brought the metre total up to 546. Metres run, though, doesn't exactly tell you as much about the game as you would think though. It's all about what you do with the metres that counts, hence why they had such a low winning margin against the Irish. Though the shots at goal probably don't help, it was still great for England to get the win and build some confidence. Ireland as well, the amount of turnovers won definitely decreased during the second half, not ideal. They finished the game with just 7 compared to 6 in the first half. England was starting to win a few more turnovers during that second half, kind of being a bit more sensible with the discipline and starting to disrupt a bit more of that Irish ball than they actually wanted to in the first half, for example. The tackle success, though, unbelievable. Such great defence from both teams. Need I say more? The goal kick success, though, as I talked about before, well, England, dreadful goal kick success ratio. Ireland, pretty decent, but wow, Jack Crowley did not get the muttons he missed at a good time, so really feeling for him on that one. He only missed 2, but at the end of the game, missing them, not exactly good for the confidence of the team. compared it to Marcus Smith, man. His only attempted goal went over to win the game. Unbelievable stuff. The ruck success continues to be a huge success for the Irish as well, as they won 99% of them, just losing a single breakdown when they had the ball in their possession. The set piece continued to be a huge confidence as well for England. Ireland's scrum did kind of start to fall apart during that second half. Perhaps they need to look at tight head prop cover options that aren't Finlay Beelum, maybe. Perhaps Cian Healy is going to retire from Test rugby after they win the Six Nations next week. Perhaps that could happen. But yes, England's discipline definitely did improve, like I was going to say, during the second half. Remember when we discussed the first half stats there? Sorry, they'd conceded 4 penalties inside their own half. This only ended up being 5, so they conceded a total of 10 for the game. The Irish conceded a total of 9 for the game if we include Peter O'Mahony's yellow card, which was not exactly at a very good time considering the Irish were starting to gain a bit of momentum. Overall, I think, this is, I guess, a bit of proof that, well, there were flaws in the Irish team going into the Six Nations, though they are going to remain as the very best team. And also, guys, it's a bit wild to think they haven't lost a game other than the World Cup quarterfinal since France in 2022. So, win streaks like these have to end up ending at some point. Well done to the Irish for having such a long streak, and well done to England for deservingly beating them today. The refreshing thing about the Six Nations, guys, I've talked about this before, none of the conversations but about the ref, it's just genuine support for the teams, which I've absolutely loved to see. Comment your thoughts as well down below about how you think these teams won the game. Do subscribe if you're keen to as well. My name's Max, I've been the host for today's video. Well done to the two teams, and I'll see you later. Cheers.